Good morning, everyone. I'm Philip DeLeon, and welcome to my first episode of Good Morning Radar. Today on Good Morning Radar, my first guest is going to be CEO of WithYouWithMe, Tom Moore. How's it going, Tom?
How you going, Radar?
Doing well. How are you?
Good.
Good. On today's topic, we're going to talk about cybersecurity. So about the job market, let's look at the job market, Tom, if we can, in your knowledge about the job market. I think...
I don't know how you've convinced me to jump on your first show when you gave me this idea, though, Radar.
Oh, because you're charmer. You're charming.
Not at all. I'm charming on radio, mate.
Yeah. Okay, the job market, there are 333,000 UK, US, and Australia. How did you come up with those numbers? Can you give me some background?
So I think one of the, I would say, it's not controversial yet, but something that's getting a little bit controversial in the tech job market is the reporting of a cybersecurity skill shortage.
Okay.
So some estimates of the cybersecurity gap is something like all the way up to 1.5 million jobs across Western economy, right? Okay. I think it's a bit smaller than that.
Right.
One of the numbers that we've come down to is about 313,000. But when you look at that number, that isn't a real definite chalk at how many entry-level positions are there.
Okay.
How many positions can someone that goes from not being in tech to get into cybersecurity? I think it's actually a lot smaller. The other interesting thing that's going on in the cybersecurity market is that traditionally, if you look at what would it take to build, say, a cybersecurity analyst,
right,
with an extracurricular, it would be like 5 to 6 years.
Okay.
So you do like...
So we're talking education here now.
Yeah. So like as a second part of the market, it takes too long to actually get rid of the shortfall.
Okay.
So it takes about 6 years to build an analyst.
Okay.
So you would consider computer science, bachelor, masters, at the same time being a systems administrator, and then adding a few certifications. By the time you're ready to be an analyst, and one of the most interesting things that's come out of the market so far is that there have been alternative programs to develop people more in a faster fashion towards those entry-level jobs. So what does that mean? It means that the market is somewhat overvalued in terms of how many jobs there are. We think it's a lot smaller.
Okay.
And two, we don't think it creates... Well, I don't think it creates... It takes 6 years to be a cybersecurity professional at an entry level.
So can you... how did you determine that it doesn't take 4 to 6 years to become an entry-level analyst position? Is that just cultural, or is it...
I think it's cultural.
It's cultural. Okay.
So I think what you'll find is that most people and how the cybersecurity industry has been built over the last 15, sort of 20 years, have come from an information technology background.
Okay.
So they've come from infrastructure roles, engineering roles, systems administration roles, network security roles, and network engineering, and have transferred into cybersecurity. Now, is that the best fit? I'm not sure.
So what have you learned about cybersecurity and how?
We've learned that you can introduce people from different backgrounds that have actually similar aptitudes and strengths to some of the best cybersecurity professionals and train them up fast. So what makes our organization a little bit more credible than the average? We've probably got about 18 staff you would consider cybersecurity specialists across analysts, pen testers, instructors, security architecture consultants. And we work with 2 cybersecurity operations centers for the Australian federal government. And this year we actually built a large cybersecurity operations center in Asia Pacific. So I think we did it with people that are new to it, and the SOCs are performing well. So I think it's time to change the way we look at, in particular, how we hire cybersecurity analysts, and understand that it's a human problem. And if it's a human problem and we move from an information technology environment to a data technology environment, the roles of the people in the data technology environment are a little bit different to the roles of those that are in information and infrastructure technology environment.
Okay, so speaking of those roles, there are a couple of roles in cybersecurity that you can do. Can we talk about cyber analyst? Yeah,
so I think there's there's a number of sort of key entry-level roles. Cybersecurity analyst, penetration tester, systems administrator, and consultant. I would probably consider sort of the 4 key roles. But with an analyst, one of the hardest things to look at if you're approaching the job market is there's no consistency in the title. So there's SOC analyst, there's SOC analyst level 1, there is cybersecurity intelligence analyst, there's cybersecurity risk analyst, there's cybersecurity policy analyst, there's cybersecurity operations analyst, and all of these things could just mean a cybersecurity analyst, which their main job is overseeing a network, overseeing traffic on a network, reviewing a number of different software products, including something called a SIEM, looking for vulnerabilities, looking for instances, identifying them as something that's really a threat, and then going down a rabbit hole to work out if they are.
So if I may, the cybersecurity realm, cybersecurity analysis, you can break it down. You're saying that when people put jobs out there, it's usually what they don't know what they're if it's like a penetration tester.
No. So like I didn't even mention that.
Okay.
I said that when you think of cybersecurity analysts, there's like, for one job, there's something like 7 titles.
Right.
So the first point to note is that there is no synchronization across the sort of industry in title. So if you're looking to get into it, when you articulate the size of the job market and you look at it and go, hey, there's a SOC analyst here, a cybersecurity analyst here, a cybersecurity operations analyst, a cybersecurity intelligence analyst, they're all the same thing.
Okay.
So if you've got an entry-level role that says cybersecurity analyst, that's a cybersecurity analyst.
Okay. So in terms of the, speaking of the roles, what would make a good cybersecurity analyst?
So a good cybersecurity analyst is someone that can analyze patterns, identify changes in patterns. When they identify changes in patterns, they become decisive, form an assumption, create a statement and conclusion, and go, hey, we have an issue or we don't have an issue. That's pretty much what the job is. An analyst in cybersecurity is somewhat similar to an investment analyst in a stock market. So they're sort of looking at traffic, seeing gaps, seeing vulnerabilities, seeing differences in traffic and reporting on it in relation to threat trends.
And the way we can gauge that, we can do things such as an aptitude test, assessments.
Yeah, well, what do you think makes up a good analyst?
Person who is highly logical, analytical, likes puzzles, likes to analyze information, data, good communicator.
Yeah. So someone that's got, the way we look at it is, in our opinion, a good analyst and a cybersecurity analyst has good logical reasoning, abstract reasoning, quantitative analysis.
Right.
So good at mathematics. I'm not really good at mathematics. Statement and conclusion, so they can form a point. And on the sort of psychometric side, if you look at the big 5, which is probably the strongest sort of way of analyzing someone's psychology, I think they are highly conscientious.
Right. That's true.
It is a difficult job that requires reading a lot of things, keeping a strong attention to detail, and solving problems without much direction. Slightly agreeable. Why? Slightly agreeable people understand how patterns work a lot better. Whereas someone like me, I'm so disagreeable, I can never really register how things work wise in terms of patterns because I don't agree with patterns at all. I like to set my own. Open to experience.
Right.
So when they see a gap, they go down it. Highly extroverted, so they can brief and they work well in a team and understanding human behavior, and they generate their energy from people.
Neurotic.
Highly neurotic.
Highly neurotic.
Good analysts don't like to be wrong, ever.
Ever. Yeah.
So you will know quite quickly if one's proven wrong or thinks they're proven wrong, they'll fight back. That makes up a good analyst. What's interesting about what makes up a good analyst and what makes up a good computer science student who traditionally get into cybersecurity after being in IT support, engineering, development, is that actually the characteristics from we've tested so far of computer science students is that completely different. Computer science students have good spatial awareness. They're good at statement and conclusion as well. They're good at design and critical thinking. And their psychometrics they're somewhat highly agreeable or disagreeable completely. No neuroticism at all. Somewhat open to experience depending on how creative they are. Highly conscientious, that's one that's the same. And most of them aren't extroverted. What does that mean? It means it heads to bet that some of the people that we've got going into cybersecurity from a traditional computer science background maybe aren't the right people for the job. The most interesting thing that we've found about it, though, is that actually diversifies the market and creates more opportunity for people leaving the military, for example, that might be a rifleman.
Okay.
They could be an intelligence analyst.
Right.
They could be someone from a supply role, but they are really good at being an analyst. And if you're really good at being an analyst and you have the attributes of being an analyst, I'll tip my hat to say that you'll be a good cybersecurity analyst.
Right. You don't have to be an engineer or have an engineering degree.
Yeah, well there's a difference. So engineers are good designers. But an analyst's main job is monitoring, administrating, analyzing, and making a decision. Whereas an engineer is taking that decision and building something to solve it.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So what we've found is that the best computer science sort of most students that are graduating from a computer science and engineering background are really good computer scientists and engineers.
Right.
But as an analyst, we don't need that level. We need people that understand human behavior, that like to get into the detail, that formulate effectively an opinion based off logic, and don't like to be wrong.
So possibly out in the job market, we have a lot of engineers who shouldn't be cybersecurity analysts, possibly.
Yeah, I think you'll find that if you look at the best engineers that have become good cybersecurity and great cybersecurity professionals and a leading SOCs, you'll find that the aptitude of logical quantitative, they have it.
Okay.
But you'll notice that there's always a fast transition from computer science students in a systems administration role because they're bored shitless, mate. Good engineers want to design good products, good features, build things. Whereas an analyst isn't designed to build things. It's looking at the buildings, looking at how the buildings work, how the traffic comes in and out of it, and then seeing holes, and then the engineers will come in and plug that hole. So we could be completely cutting away a whole part of the market by considering people that aren't from a computer science background,
right.
Maybe from an economics background, maybe from a finance background, maybe from a military background.
Combat veterans.
Any sort of background where I would say is human-centric, you'll find that people have naturally found their way there, and they're probably, with those sort of aptitude or psychometry, they'll probably be a good analyst, yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about the job market. In terms of cybersecurity analysts, based on my research, starting pay is anywhere from $90,000 to $95,000, which I think it's a great starting salary. And here in DC, it's a big cyber industry here in Washington D.C. San Antonio, Texas, also has a big cybersecurity job market where there are plenty of jobs that are open, but we don't have enough talent to fill those jobs.
So one of the things you see all the time, right, is cybersecurity jobs, like huge cybersecurity shortfall. Where the fuck are the jobs, man? And so you see these huge figures, but when it comes down to it, how many of them are entry? How many will take people with no experience?
Right.
And where are they? The first point is most of them at the moment are really going to be banking, telecom, utilities, financial services, or government departments. So if you've got a security clearance, you're already one step ahead of the curve. So yes, the entry salary is quite high,
right?
And they're looking for alternative methods for hiring people, especially with security clearances. So I'm going to sort of jump to sort of two geographic areas.
Okay.
I think I mentioned a few too before we started. The one big geographic area that sort of jumps out at me in the US is DC.
Right.
There's a significant shortfall of talent. Probably about 800 to 1,000 analysts in the DC area for the next year. So the DMV, right, which is interesting. There's probably about 103, 104 companies.
So we're talking like Booz Allen, Khaki, things like that? Okay.
So there's about 104, 100 sort of, I would say around that sort of companies hiring entry-level cybersecurity analysts.
Right, yeah, it's 103, 104
with
right
a security clearance, working for the government or government contracting.
Right.
The second big market that we can see growing in the US for people with a security clearance is Augusta, Georgia. Why?
Right. I think around 50 positions or something like
50 to 100 in the next year.
Okay.
Army Cyber's moving down there.
Oh, is that right?
So one thing that you could look at to articulate where are jobs like cybersecurity going to be, because a lot of it's around national infrastructure and protection, where are the departments located?
Okay.
And they all have central hubs in DC, but there's also state ones.
Right.
And at state ones, you don't need a security clearance.
Really?
Yes, unless you're at Homeland. So you look at it all that way and you go, all right, the biggest shortfall that we see, so if you're considering shifting your career and getting into cyber, if you got a security clearance, head to the DC area or head to Augusta, Georgia.
What about Texas?
Texas, so Texas, San Antonio actually is where the 24th, 25th Air Force sits.
Right.
One of the, I would say, full spectrum cyber warfare is held by the Air Force there. It's also where the Air Force recruiting school is. It's called Mill City.
Right.
Secondary hub built for cybersecurity positions.
Yep.
I would only say it's about, I think one of the banks is opening up there.
Yeah, Wells Fargo,
Wells Fargo, yeah.
Wells
so I would say there's probably about 50 to 100 cybersecurity analyst positions there in the next 12 months.
And you have USAA, who's down there as well, headquartered.
Yeah, so based off general turnover of Booz Allen Hamilton, Accenture Federal Services, USAA, and a number of small contractors, there's probably about 50 new positions being added because people are leaving,
right,
or just new with internal. But then Wells Fargo is bringing their whole cybersecurity operation center there, I think in the next year or two.
So I was doing some research and I came across some numbers over the next 12 months, breakdown 17,000 2 years, which would equal...
That's Australia, yeah.
It's Australia. It's Australia, right?
So
okay.
here's a good indication that the numbers need to be analysed before you go, there's a huge cybersecurity shortfall, so I'm going to run off and do a master's.
Okay.
Or I'm going to run off and do this credential. Or I'm going to run off and do this course.
I think it's 506 entry level.
Yeah, so if you look at Australia, it's predicted to have 17,000 open cybersecurity positions in the next few years.
Correct.
Right?
Yep, correct.
Now, I think I gave you a breakdown. And
I think you said under 100 state government, 3 new SOCs.
Yeah.
Banking and financial services, 21. Yeah. Telecom, 19. Utilities, 15. IC, home affairs, 20. Canberra cross professionals, I guess 100. Across defense industry, about 200. 30 across PS. And Sydney and Melbourne. Looks like it. Those are the numbers.
So you've got a number that looks 17,000, big shortfall.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, only 560 cybersecurity analyst entry positions.
Ah, all right.
So, and how do we know that? We're doing a little bit of work on each of them, but the point is that a good market to jump into? Yes, it is. Cybersecurity is a good market to jump into. It'll open other IT positions up for you.
Okay. And
it's a good way of getting into it. But when we look at hardcore cybersecurity entry, security operations analyst roles, there's only about 500. So you've got to think, all right, if I'm going to do it, how can I upskill quickly within the next 12 months to get to those jobs? And I guarantee you, if you're coming from a national security background or a policing background, or if you come from somewhere with a security clearance, you're definitely going to have an advantage.
Okay, but also networking. You know, for those of us who are veterans who'd like to get into, things such as cybersecurity, community is a very important thing in networking. I think.
Definitely.
What do you think about that?
Well, I'd say the cybersecurity community is hard to network with. Why? Because they're professionals. I would say they're a new profession. They're a proud profession.
Okay.
And what I've found is that they really, I would say, much like the military. When you want to work with people that are credible.
Yeah.
Like you're like, oh, that person's an operator. That person is not so much an operator.
Absolutely.
Very, very similar. So you find that veterans transition into the community pretty well. How they communicate is a bit different. So rolling LinkedIn to engage cybersecurity professionals is a bit harder. They're actually a lot more active on Twitter. They're a lot more active on Sec4 Slack channels where they're sharing ideas. And they're a lot more active at events, either online or face-to-face, where they're actually conducting hacks or hackathons or something like that.
Right.
So the easiest way to engage, I've found the cybersecurity community. I don't think they like me that much. I lie to you. But the way I see that they really enjoy each other's company is you have to be credible. So being credible in cybersecurity is pulling things apart. So don't be confident and show them that you like to pull things apart. 2, I found that if you engage them on the platforms that they like to engage on, they come at you with open arms.
Okay.
So they're actually a very nice community that looks to master its trade and very collaborative. So, but if you're looking to just find them on LinkedIn and reach out to them on LinkedIn, it's not going to happen. You have to go to cybersecurity events, find the Slack channels, go to something like hamster.com, search the Slack channels that sit for Sec4 or SecOps, and see if you can get into one of those communities because they're brilliant. Quora, jump on there and see guys sharing stories on how to get into it. Engage the operators because the industry is driven by operating professionals.
Operators, yeah.
And what you will find on LinkedIn though is executives and CISOs, but it's not their big platform. I found LinkedIn is great for sales roles, great for HR professionals, great for management consultants, but the ticker is that they enjoy Twitter, they enjoy controversial hacks and topics. They enjoy events, especially product and vendor-based events, where they can pull it apart and share ideas.
Yeah.
And they enjoy closed groups that are actually geographically sort of located, and getting involved in one of them and getting amongst them will really enhance your skills.
Awesome. So becoming one, what do you think it takes to become one? To becoming a if anyone out there, if you're interested in becoming a cybersecurity analyst, or if anything that Tom has described sounds like you, how do you become, or how do you get into a role such as a cyber analyst in cybersecurity?
I'd say it's easy to get into, but very, very hard to master.
Okay.
So,
How's that?
well, it's easy to get into because of the gap, and there's a number of programs that can help you. I don't think going down a traditional master's degree model is going to get you good at the skills required for cybersecurity.
Okay.
So there are a number of, I would go vendor agnostic boot camps to train you as a good intelligence professional, which is effectively what you are, an intelligence analyst. Doing those first, doing a bit of work in some of these groups and on practical projects, so getting into virtual labs after doing a course, and then applying, I think you'd be good to go to get to an entry level. But once you get into the job, having a higher understanding of computing will help you. So studying computer engineering over time, or
You don't have to have one like tech background right off the bat.
No. I'm just saying that to master it, you might have to shift back to higher education or constant skill-based training over the course of your career.
All right.
So to get in, I don't think it's that hard. I think it could be done in about 100 hours. To get good at it, it'll take I'd say about 5 to 15 years, depending if you're a bit of a whiz or you're not.
I think it was 100, 150 hours. Yeah. You put time to get to it and whatnot.
So what I'm saying is that you can get into it if you have the right aptitude, you're the right person for it, you have a passion for technology, you have a passion for humanity, and you love meeting them at their crossing.
Well, so now let's talk about automation. Is it sustainable? Will the industry become much more automated? What do you think?
Well, one of the big things is if I'm leaving school, what do I invest in? Do I invest in learning how to code, or is an interface going to be so easy for me to use that I don't need to know how to code? I don't like a good one with cybersecurity is if quantum computing evolves into something that I don't know enough about it. I got to read a book about it. Quantum computing can then remove the issue of cybersecurity. Like you won't need anything other than quantum computing to. You won't have a cyber problem if you have quantum computing. Okay. I disagree. Humans are always humans. They're going to break into whatever. But is automation going to stop entry-level cybersecurity roles? No. What's going on at the moment is that if you think of a cybersecurity operations center or a SOC, as you mentioned before, level one, there's generally 3 levels within a SOC. Level 1 is saying to automate and orchestrate, but someone still needs to analyze which automations you put in, administer the automation, and then jump to the second level, which is someone you'd really call a threat hunter. So analyze what the problem is after the automation can't correct it or identify it. So the level 1 level of SOC. See what the computer produces you, the data, this is the problem, then become the person that solves it.
So then you're set.
So I think a cybersecurity analyst is just going to shift to going straight towards level 2 and threat hunting.
But more of a need for intel analysts, or people who kind of have that kind of mentality.
Correct. So the level 1 person, which is really somewhat intelligence, somewhat tech.
Monitoring.
Yeah, and monitoring is going to go to advanced intelligence and people that can get rid of the threat. So that's what the level of automation will happen. You always need humans to review the report, make an assessment, and make a decision for the business. Okay. So I think it's something that will be sustainable for quite a while.
So if someone asked you if it were for them, like a veteran came up to you, or a military member transitioning from the military, can they do it? Is it them? What do you think?
I would ask them first if they like to be wrong. Straight up. Or I guess cybersecurity is really interesting. Anyone that's been in a counterinsurgency environment and thoroughly liked it, whether they were infantrymen, combat arms, combat support arms, generally anyone in intelligence, signals intelligence is brilliant, can be brilliant for this sort of role. Right. But I've found that if you've been in a counterinsurgency environment, you've been involved in intelligence fusion or understanding your enemy and adding to the reporting process, and you really like to understand what people think, solve puzzles, pull things apart, and one of the best operators I've seen go from rifleman to that was that guy that was always in with the locals. Okay. So when we When we started working with the Afghan military, he was the person at the dinners, at the lunches, playing soccer with them, building up rapport and understanding a new culture. So even some of the great people in the military, if they like to interject, they like to work with our local partners, and they like to have a cultural experience and really understand how a different culture works.
So it's like meaning and whatnot.
I just understand different like analyzing why the culture is different by integrating into it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Or if you like crime shows, and you like to be writing crime shows, it's a good test. Like, just ask yourself, do you like that? And then jump in and be an analyst.
And then so that means someone would, I think that's great advice. And, pick a company that you think is doing just that, a company that you think that you'd fit into, or one that's meaningful.
Well, I think the hard bit about picking cybersecurity is that you're either going to have to work for a large industry, so telecom, utility, big industries that have big risks, like banking. Or you have to work for the government. At the heart of cybersecurity is a national security problem.
Right.
So I find that veterans are quite good for it. Allows them to continue their service. The only other sort of avenue is tech companies. So you really got to think about, do I still want to serve? If I still want to serve, then I would suggest slotting into the government for your first few roles. You've got a security clearance that's going to give you an advantage. And that includes the defense contractors or the government contractors that are supporting that. And if you don't want to do that, then just pick a company that you admire. You'll find that tech companies have cybersecurity teams. They're a little bit harder to get into because they're full of tech people.
Right.
So they've already probably worked out what their metal is.
But other industries like healthcare, finance,
banking, telecom, utilities, all are different. So if you like big toys like dams, buildings, go work for an energy company. They've got an operational threat and a non-operational threat environment, a data threat environment. If you like to understand how the money shifts in the economy and how the money sort of system works in terms of where money flows, how it's secured, you can work for a bank. They all have different experiences. And if you can't pick, then get it within the community. Find a boss that you want to work for and that you admire. Learn some skills, network with them, and then go work for them.
Right, because regardless, cybersecurity is needed in just about every industry.
Yeah.
It's not just
and there is a shortfall. They can't fill these jobs.
Yeah.
They're all screaming for talent.
Right. They don't have the talent.
Well, yeah. One, we've shot the talent too big.
Right.
So now we've created all these programs that aren't giving you skills. But the jobs are there and the people need them. And they're looking for people that are curious, people that are good at analyzing problems, and people that are not afraid to share their opinion and sort of back it. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, thanks, Tom, for joining me today. That's the end of my first episode. Join me next time when we'll talk about cybersecurity still, but we'll go on to another role like pen tester. Thanks for joining me, guys. I will see you